Welcome to the famous North Lake at Yateley, the one-time home of the late and great Basil and a few of his friends. The 14-acre lake now holds 160 carp, a lot more than there used to be, but they still need to be found. So many people turn up and go fishing and go to the nearest available swim in the car park. And it doesn't matter if you've got the best rig in the world and you're armed with the greatest bait, you still need to put it in the right place to get yourself the bite that you require. I'm stood here just in the car park, and funnily enough, the wind is blowing straight in here, and that is always the first place I look for any signs of carp. I've come a little way away from the car park at the moment to have a look at the more open water areas. And first and foremost, I'm trying to get a feel for the place. Number one, see how many anglers are on. And two, just to see if anything is showing in the open water. I'm looking for bubbling, fizzing, fish showing themselves. Head and shouldering is a great indicator the carp are feeding in that area. Fizzing and feeding. Areas of water that are clouded up could indicate that the carp are rooting around there and having a meal. They're all ideal places for you to put a hook bait. You'll notice I haven't brought a fishing rod with me. There are other people using the lake, and for me to go leading around with a marker float or a bare lead is probably going to upset a few people. So your greatest tool at this moment in time are your eyes, a good set of Polaroids and a peaked cap. I'm not seeing a great deal out there. It's mid-afternoon now. The fish may well have got rid of all their activities for the day and disappeared into the margins. And that's the next place we're going to look. Again, I've come to the next swim and I'm looking at the open water spots, and there's weed everywhere. Weed is something we're all going to have to get used to in this day and age because you can no longer control it. All that means is you've got to make sure your tackle is up to the job. And you'll notice as I walked into this swim, I didn't come rushing in. I'm not shouting and screaming at my mates. I walked in slowly and used the cover at either side. The fish could be right at your feet. And if you come bustling in, they're going to be shooting off to the other side of the lake, and a chance just might go begging. There are several swims on this lake that are very, very productive at certain times. Just because that swim's empty or available doesn't necessarily mean you have to move into it. The carp could be anywhere, and this walk around is all about finding them. I've stopped here a little longer because it's just the way the water was moving. It almost seemed as if there was some subsurface activity. And just over on the edge of that weed is a big patch of bubbles that's been coming up for about 15-20 seconds. And there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that there's a carp who's responsible for that. They love this area of the lake. It's got all the cover they need underneath those trees. There's a little island over there and all this weed. It's a perfect environment for a carp. Doesn't surprise me there's fish here. I think this one's the top of my list so far. Again, we've made our way further around the lake. Behind me is the River Blackwater. And into this section of the lake are two little drainage ditches. So when that river's up with rain, as it has been the last few weeks, and it starts dribbling into the lake, it attracts the carp underneath these trees. There's nothing like an influx of water in the lake to do just that. However, and I'm watching some bubbling underneath this tree behind me, a little birdie tells me that a good mate of mine has been baiting up under here and fishing it after work and overnight. So I'm going to leave that well alone. But it's interesting to know where there are some carp. I've stood up here on a stump. I'm on a CMEX water, and it's against the rules to climb trees. But elevation of any type gets you a better insight and a better view into the water. All I need to do is put my Polaroids on, and I'm looking at a completely different environment. There's another useful point here about fish location and the bird life on the water. I'm looking at a little family of coots over there, and twice now they've started squawking and screeching and looking down into the weed. They're actually trying to shoo the carp away from their babies. So that's a good indicator they're here. When coots are getting ready to breed in the spring, they'll have a fight with their own shadow even. They're that aggressive. But at this time of year, when things are settled down, keep your eye on the coots, especially in the weed, because they will try and shoo away the carp. Another bird that's a real good indicator of features is a grebe. Grebe know where fish hang out. It doesn't matter if it's a carp or it's a tiny little roach. Fish like features. Watch grebes carefully and watch the areas they patrol in, and then cast across them with a marker float. 9 times out of 10, there'll be something interesting there to fish to.